You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Dr. Laura Brown, owner of Green Tree Animal Hospital in Libertyville, Illinois. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Hey, Polly. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to have you back so you could tell the listeners all about the incredible surgery your team did on a goldfish.
Yep. I will say I'm very proud of my team. Dr. Marina Jaworski was the head veterinarian on that one. She did a course called Aqua Vet when she was in vet school, is how she learned how to do that. But this goldfish was one of our clients who has had the goldfish for many years, I believe. I think he's called a black Moor, Moor, fancy goldfish. And she had been noticing that his eye had been getting bigger and bigger over a few months period of time. And I want to say Smokey's fairly old, maybe like 7 years old.
How long do goldfish live?
That's a Dr. Jaworski question, but I think she told me it's possible for that guy to live another 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So obviously this is a specialty. There are veterinarians that just deal in fish. Like that's where the aquariums have veterinarians that just do fish, right? They do, the marine animals and stuff like that, like at SeaWorld and things like that. So it is a specialty that if anybody's interested in that, you go to vet school first and then you specialize in this sort of thing. But Dr. Jaworski had done this procedure before. So there was a bucket of water that she put some anesthesia in, calculated it up based on how many gallons of water she put in the bucket, how much anesthesia to put in there. And then Smokey got in there and swam around for about 10 minutes. Then you could tell that he was getting sleepy because he sort of stopped circling as much and his fin slowed down and he, got kind of quiet. So when that happened, they took him out of the bucket and they pumped the anesthesia water through a tube and then a little tiny tube. And then they put the tube in Smokey's mouth. So the water kept flowing through his gills and keeping him wet as well as keeping him anesthetized. Okay. And so we did that up on top of one of our tables and they put a yoga mat as the table. And then the water kept going, flushing down the table and over Smokey and back into the bucket and recirculating. So he's kept the anesthesia going that way. And then she quickly removed his eye. It was a 5-minute procedure. It's not technically difficult. We didn't suture it closed. She just dissected around it and tied off the big blood vessels and then removed the eyeball and then put him back in the tank. There was a separate tank there with just his regular water and no anesthesia in it and put him back in there and warmed him up. And she held him and kind of moved him back and forth like he was swimming to kind of hurry up the water across his gills and through his lungs and stuff. And then he woke up and he was good.
Oh my gosh.
It was cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there an actual tumor behind the eyeball?
No, it didn't. She didn't feel like there was a tumor. I think the eyeball may be out for pathology to find out what happened. She did tell me the other eye has a cataract. So he can't see and he couldn't see before the procedure. But He figures it out in his own little tank, I think. I think he has some buddy fish in his tank that help him out maybe.
Well, goldfish have come a long way since I was little.
Right? I mean, he's pretty big. I mean, I don't know how much he weighs, but Dr. Jaworski held him with like 2 hands. Like, you know what I mean? Like in the palm of her hand, his head stuck out the end and his tail stuck out the other end. So he was a decent sized fish, you know?
Yeah.
He's pretty big. Yeah.
Versus,
Yeah.
I had said, "Oh, my pet goldfish needs surgery." My dad would have said, "There's the toilet."
I know, exactly. I mean, we have come a long way. I will say there are definitely that niche of people that have, you know, will do whatever it takes for their pets. No right, no wrong, no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hopefully Smokey lives for another 7 or 8 years. But the key was it looked uncomfortable. There was a before shot and it was very, very large. That could not have been happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was
poor guy.
had to be uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing to say about veterinary medicine. I mean, we've come a long way since I graduated about how much we can do for pets and all the specialties there are and all the diagnostics. I mean, it's very, very sophisticated.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's
very cool.
So, well, thank you for sharing that story, and we look forward to having you back.
Yeah, if people want to go on our Facebook page, I think there's a few chronological pictures of how that all went down, right?
Yep, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.